Hi, I'm Anna.
I'm Ben.
We're AutoSave. Welcome to our channel.
Today we are watching Vinland Saga Season 1, Episode 10. Last episode was sweet. We had a crazy, amazing fight sequence between Thorfinn and Thorkel, which resulted in a dislocated shoulder, broken ribs, and fingies being cut off.
I mean, at least there was some damage on the other side. Can't deny that. There was a lot of blood.
I wonder if this body of water underneath the bridge will be renamed the Finger Lakes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like
Probably
it.
not. I mean, we've come from the future to know that that's okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Ooh, fog. Thorkel's bored.
What the fuck?
There's no way. You'll never go to Valhalla at this rate.
Damn. The music.
Wow.
彼にあなたの剣を収めなさい。剣で滅びる。すまんが少し外してくれるか。なんだってんだ。腰抜け王子がいつまでも黙ってられるか。冬になれば撤退命令がなされるはず。ご辛抱です。どうか殿下をお守りください。なんだよ、つまんねえ奴らだな。また嫌がらせか。せい。アスゲート、戦になんねえだろうが。でけえよ、声が。なんせあっちの大将はデンマークの王子様だしな。あれ、言ってなかったか？王子のクヌート殿下。
Oh god.
What's that reaction supposed to mean? What, like, history? What knowledge?
I am going to paraphrase a quote from the Bible. The true strongest warriors are those who are able to wield a sword but choose not to. I am terrified of Canute.
Similar to Thor's kind of dreamlike state in like episode 1.
That's in character.
It looked like the hilt of a sword for a second, but that's a stick.
Oh.
Waiting for you to come home. Having people that wait for you. It looks like the same village.
Oh. The body right in front of him. Vinland.
本体はとっくに北に引きってこんなしけた村つまんでる。小遣い稼いで帰ろうってことなんだろう。とでかい町を襲おうぜ。近くにブリストルとか？100人ばかしで何ができるってんだよ。今バカっつったかおい。お、聞
聞こえたかバカじゃねえみてえだな。
なんだだこら。今年はあと2、3個村を来来年に期待しようや。
あるかね、来年が。去年もイングランドは荒らし回ってんだぜ。特に今年は凄まじかった。イングランド王も国外に逃げたっていうじゃねえか。もうこりゃデンマーク王の勝ちだよ。草は終わりだ。
ロンドンにトルケルがいるぜ。強さは見ただろうが。
トルケルね。体のイングランドをいつ見限ってもおかしくね。理由はなんだ。理由は
Of course he heard it.
牛泥棒言っちゃったか。後でちゃんとアシュラッドに報告しとけよ。
豊かな土地だ。出てきた土地に似てる。アイスランドとはえらい違いだ。雪が積もり始めているだろうな。
早起き。トル、まだ日も昇ってねえぜ。
The score in the show is phenomenal.
あいつらが騒がしくて眠れないか。勘弁してやれや。軍ばかりであいつらもイラついてたからな。気晴らしせんと。
気安く話。てめえら最近勘違いしてんじゃねえ。俺はてめえらの仲間じゃねえ。操ってるつもりだろ。そうやってうぬぼれてろ。俺に喉を裂かれて暴るその日までな。
怖いね。チビガキが俺にガン飛ばす。ま、時間は若いお前は成長し、俺は老いる。
Going to get old.
いつか当然のことだ。どんな強者もいずれは死ぬ。周りを見てみろ、トロフィー。これは今のイングランドの住人。サクソン人が作ったもサクソンよりも前の住人のものだ。強い民族だったそうだ。
What a shot.
10年前サクソンに滅ぼされた大魔人だ。国の名はブリタニ。高度な文明だった。今よりもずっとな。
周りくどいんだよ。何が言いて。
せっかちだね。一人の話は聞くもんだぜ。人間の世界は緩やかに確実に老いてきてるってことさ。ローマ人をサクソンが滅ぼし、今度は俺たちが滅ぼす。ローマ帝国の栄光は遠い過去になる。何でもどもの言うことにはでもしたら最後の審判とやらがその日殺され、今の世は完全に滅ぶんだ。
ラグナロク。
見ろトロフィー。滑稽じゃねえか。夜明けだ。
Messenger?
馬だ。一騎。あれは友軍だ。ここらには俺らしかいないはずだ。当たれよ聞こう。天王配下アシェラッド隊はいずれより参られたか。機構は本隊所属か。
Ragnar's seen it.
あいにくだが本隊はずっと北だ。もう本拠地へ帰りつつある。機構はこんなところで何を。そこの村で小銭稼ぎをね。離れたのか。まあ馬も疲れてるようだぜ。新しいのと取り替えてやろうか。
トルケルか。
もうそこまで来てる。数は500ほど。直参だけ。
Holy shit.
隊の足跡をたどってきてる。マールバラに至るだろう。
Thorkel just decided to, like, leave and follow the main army?
ロンドンの包囲軍は当時の4000がいたはずだが、そんなものとっくに撃破された。
Did they go ahead and fight without Canut's orders, or?
Looks like they just got pushed.
Thorkel just decided, like, nope, ambush them.
奴らトルケルを先頭に取り。
4,000 men.
Jesus.
熊みてえに強かった。本体まで一直線だ。殿下、殿下。魂が救われん。殿下、トルケル目がそこまで。
The tent is being picked up.
王子様みっけ。クヌート殿下はどうなった。奴らの虜だ。殿下を奪還すべく
But not killed.
どうする決めるのはあんたの足だって
These people are bored.
Oh,
It's a good line.
Dawn in the Age of Twilight.
ラグナロクの仕事がよ。埋めとけ。こいつの乗ってきた馬もだ。いいか野郎ども、よく聞け。ルート王子殿下の救出に向かう。相手はトルケル以下500。博打の打ちどころだ。クヌート殿下は第2位のお方。どちらの軍に渡してもお前ら想像できるか。デンマークとイングランド、二大国の覇者が賜る他の奴らに譲る手はねえぜ。俺たちの手柄だ。やってやろうぜ。
どうすんだよ焚き付きトルケルだぞ。賞賛あんのか。
さあな。
お前
そがれの時代だぜビオル。
Oh,
パーッと暴れてみようじゃねえか。
Go out with a bang.
okay, that was Vinland Saga Season 1, Episode 10. That was a beautiful episode. That was wild.
The visuals and the setting in comparing empires that have fallen to empires that are about to fall in the context of the show, that was amazing. I honestly was really like that. I think I got chills on multiple occasions, not only from dialogue, but from visuals, from just the wind blowing around Thorfinn, that almost I felt like I was feeling it too.
Time is very frightening.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you, with a large enough view and not being like completely consumed by the moment you're in, it makes you realize how insignificant you are in terms of the repetition that time brings in history.
The cycle, the circle. The mark you make or the fact that you even existed isn't really going to matter to the next group of people.
A civilization with technology and just understanding much greater than ours existed before us and then was taken over, and now that thing is happening again. It's almost like, even though it's completely the truth, it, like, hearing it, you think it's almost contradictory, right? Like, of like, how could that be, even though it is the case, and because it's the case, it makes your role in it come into question. And in terms of Askeladd's position, he's like not basking. He understands it and is confidently walking forward.
I'd agree with that. There's an awareness there, and also an acceptance. And I like the phrasing of confidently walking forward. I mean, both of us are super into watching archaeological discoveries and studies. And what this episode made me think of is those times when we get new knowledge or new information that, like, a group of people had tools or comprehended something that we never would have expected them that long ago to have had a concept of, or to have had capabilities to create or use tools in such a way. Discoveries come out like that all the time, that we thought that at this time period, this group of people were ahead, when really 500 years before that, there was a people that were doing quite a lot more than that future group of people.
Yeah. God, I have no idea what they're going to, what's going to come of Thorfinn's character, because like I am left with a feeling of like, because it's an anime, I'm sure too, and because of what Thorfinn is seeing and dreaming, that the wisdom of those older men, the wisdom of even Askeladd's perception of things and what he is and what piece he is choosing to play and everything, it makes me believe or hope that Thorfinn would want to break the mold in the sense of understanding what life seemingly is like and what the inevitability of life will bring, and because of that, to choose to live your life differently and prioritize different things other than war.
Mm.
And granted, it's a completely different culture too, right? It's like what they're fighting for, you need to prioritize war to a certain extent to live in that greatness afterwards. And it's just, it's very interesting when you try to compare and contrast Askeladd's vision and his words to Thor's.
At the same as comparing two different kind of ways of thinking or religious beliefs, as like if we're having Canute as a character, in comparison, all of his 4,000 men, Thorkel was yelling at them, what about Valhalla? And Canute is praying at the same time that the 4,000 men are like, yeah, like the battle, that is where we prove ourselves as a warrior, and we're being kept from that right now. We're not being given orders to do that. But Canute is following a different path for himself in terms of how to achieve that afterlife that he wishes to have or he believes in. And so we're getting like a real direct kind of comparison between people. And then we have, Askeladd and Thor's as a different kind of go between, that compare contrast that we can have in Thorfinn's life. And something else that we talked about really heavily last episode was wondering Thorfinn's future. Where does Thorfinn go from here? Because we have a character whose driving force is revenge, that always ends in like one of two ways, really. How that actually ends up ending for that character is basically in the camp of two different ideas that it ends in. They either decide to just, rest on that, find peace in something else, decide not to enact their revenge, or they do get revenge, and the chance that they are actually satisfied with it varies, but it's probably not a good chance that they'll be satisfied with it. And in this dream that we get when we open up the episode, I feel like Thorfinn's starting to question things. Obviously, his dream is fabricated from his own mind and his own subconscious. So you have to think that he is aware deep down, when he has a dream element of his father saying to him, do you really think that revenge is what I would want from you about my death? Like, is that what you think that I would want? He's obviously aware that this is a self-serving revenge. Mm-hmm. He is not exactly doing this for his father. He's doing this for himself, the son that lost his father.
I didn't expect an acknowledgement of that theme, of the stop thinking of revenge, to happen now.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't either, and we literally talked about it so much after last episode.
I didn't expect it. And because of that, I think it hit me harder. I think that the possibility and potential of Askeladd dying very soon, not by Thorfinn's hand, could happen.
I also could see that. So this is just like theorizing or just putting something out there. A lot of times when a character starts to talk in a similar mannerism to Askeladd, like, yes, he's older, and he's an older man, and he's choosing to go out with a bang, but a lot of the times it's because that person can sense that their time is coming. He could be sick with something. There could be something that he can feel in his body that is wrong. Or he could just have an intuition that his time is coming, and that he's getting older, and he really just wants to go out with a bang because he's getting older and so he won't be able to pillage
Well,
the same way he used to, or it could be that he has a sense that
I think that
something's
we can even maybe replace the sense of internal issue with that of Ragnarok, right?
Mhm.
That like inevitability of like
of
it's
death.
only a matter of time until that's going to happen. Let's step into the the hit or miss opportunities of Askeladd thinks for 1 second this could be it in terms of spoils and riches,
Mhm.
and sure that risk is massive and that danger is massive, but if he'd be doing a disservice to that to ignore or silence or suppress that like thought in his mind of going forward with this plan.
As a leader, in terms of getting these spoils, not only would it be going out with a bang for himself as the leader of this group of pirates, but whatever spoils he could possibly get from being the person that can negotiate with the second prince
Mm-hmm.
probably would set all those men for a long, long time. And they
Yeah,
probably wouldn't have to be pillaging for at least a few years.
I was really intrigued by Bjorn at the end of this episode because like the impression that we were given of Bjorn and like the kind of fighting that he likes to partake in, and the fights that you are more than likely to win,
Hmm.
being a priority for him.
So this would not be something he would necessarily want to do.
And or he'd have mixed emotions about it, especially when it doesn't. And when Askeladd is being he's a very calculated person, is like you might worry if you're Bjorn that like, okay, this calculated person is often vague until it matters and then is very detailed, but when it comes to defeating Thorkel, what do you have other than Askeladd and potentially and Thorfinn, right?
Hmm. It's a really great question to pose, though, because Bjorn is our sounding board, if you will, of like Askeladd and his, if something he does is out of character, out of the norm. Bjorn has a good understanding of Askeladd. They've obviously known each other for a lot of years, and they're kind of like just good friends. They know each other. And Bjorn's reaction to Askeladd here was definitely one of like pause and intrigue and hesitation, almost maybe even. And I think that it's really great to bring up the fact that what we know from Askeladd in terms of fighting, other than knowing that Bjorn likes, fights he can win, but Askeladd is in a similar camp, that he wants good rewards out of it. He wants to feel like he can win, and he'll be crafty in order to ensure victory, even maybe not honorable in order to ensure a victory. But the situation he's putting his men into, I can't, hearing numbers at least, like even just the numbers of how many people Thorkel has with him, or just Thorkel alone and what we've seen from Thorkel in terms of fighting ability, I'm kind of wondering here of like, this doesn't sound like a plan that Askeladd would sick his men onto, and not accept any help for to achieve. It sounds like they'd be putting themselves like much more at risk than I would have expected.
Yeah. It's like maybe if they had 100 men they could win, but now they only have 99 after that infighting.
Shit. Shit.
I think that I think it shows my ignorance and my lack of understanding or maybe it shows how I haven't seen a show that's like this before, by how far off base I seem to be in terms of Knut's character specifically. And I'm really glad that I am in that way, because I'm so invested in it and I'm so intrigued in it, in terms of what might come. And it's so different to other stereotypes that I'd assume would happen. I'm left trying to look and see what the priest is praying next to Knut, And then the Lord was told, "Put your sword back into its place, for all those who take up the sword shall perish by the sword." And I am so interested in what that character is if they choose to go further into the beliefs and mindsets of Canute, because while it might be true that those who take up the sword are destined to be put down it, or as it is said, being there has been in history the idea of fighting for that or being part of that, right? And acknowledging that that might be your end one day, but still choosing to fight for that belief. And I wonder if we're going to explore that further, because it's fucking fascinating, man.
I think that it's super purposeful, probably, to have Canute be such a question mark in our mind of what action or inaction would actually inevitably happen. And obviously in this episode we get an inaction that I had almost been working myself up to expect inaction. After we had, the king leaving him here, the 4,000 men, I was like, they're leading us to believe that he shouldn't be left in this position, so I'm gonna think that he should. And it's really nice because it's like, obviously, in this culture that we're following, of Thorfinn, the pirates, king of Denmark, Canute is an odd one out in his following of Christianity. And so it definitely gives us that good feeling of like, we're immersed in this one culture, thought, belief. And so someone who is separate from that, we don't have a full grasp or understanding of what their intentions or feelings are. Even if I do in the real world have a grasp of Christianity and what those feelings or thoughts would be or beliefs, since I'm immersed in this world, in this culture, in this situation, this is a second prince of Denmark that has now had to lead 4,000 men, chose not to, but now they're being taken by Thorkel's men. I don't actually know what this person would do here.
Hey, just because there's a baseline understanding of this massive religion doesn't mean at all that there's an understanding of one particular person's interpretation or beliefs of that.
The interpretation of it.
But
I think it's effective that to immerse us with this one kind of culture and religious beliefs, to then show us another one that then we can look through as if we are Thorfinn or one of the men that was underneath Canute's control. It's so interesting because of of praying over these people's souls, right?
On one hand you've actively made no plan or retreat, and
not even a retreat,
and because of that, you might have definitely increased the chances of the people around you dying, but you are choosing to focus on not the lives to save, but their souls to save. And I think that and the lack of fighting and just being taken too, that seems inherently like a sense of character that would be extremely hard to abandon. And I wouldn't believe that person would abandon them. But when you're placed in an anime, and an anime with people who are extremely capable of fighting and showing inhuman strength almost, it makes you wonder. It's so interesting in trying to think of where it's going to go and where what choices they're going to make with these characters.
Is Canute really going to be a character that is almost inactive in an actual role or substance, a complete pacifist because narratively that could be really interesting, to keep Canute as a literal, just a pacifist, no fighting, no picking up a sword ever. That could still be very interesting, but I am curious if or what would take I'm curious what it would take to have Canute actually act and what that act would be. But I honestly don't know what they're going to do with this character. I have literally no clue. In terms of when you bring religion into the fold, it becomes extremely unpredictable because it's so subjective in terms of the believer.
and what their interpretation of their belief is. Like, in rescuing him, right? If that comes at the cost of more bloodshed, is that something that you are going to be unhappy with because it's the loss of life? Is it going to be part of God's plan? Is it going to be, like, retribution of the souls that were, taken early? Like, what we haven't heard, like, anything from him. So, and I think that's such a strong choice to make, because it, like, makes us, like have very little, like, confidence in saying what we are sure of to happen going forward.
I think because having him in this place of possibly being a pacifist, at the moment my questions are, well, why did you just sit there with the men? Are you sitting there because your father told you to, but your father told you to fight and you're not going to do that, so you're obviously picking and choosing what rules to follow as the prince, or what you should be doing here, but you're also still putting these 4,000 men at risk, and you're not coming out and speaking to them. You're just staying in your tent and praying. And then when the enemy does come to attack, one of my thoughts or ideas of that type of person would be to place themselves in a possible position of, like, a martyrdom. Like, your people are getting attacked, you're the prince, and if you don't want to fight and you want this fight to be over, the choice would probably be to offer yourself to the other side.
No, I think that in the way that you're going about it and describing martyrdom, he is still on that path. If you die, if you make the choice that the most helpful you can be in your belief system isn't picking up a sword and is staying and praying, and you hold that belief to the grave, and you are peaceful, and then they slay you, that's what martyrdom is.
I guess my hang-up is the people that are under your care and control. I mean, if I do unpack it a little more, it's not like those soldiers would have retreated with him if he told them to retreat, because obviously they want, Valhalla, and they want to fight, and they were told by the king that they were there to fight. So it's not like they would necessarily follow the prince if the prince was like, we're going to retreat and we're not going to fight. But then I guess there's just issue there, because to see that scene of him, like, praying over their souls while we're hearing them dying definitely didn't feel very comfortable to me. And so I don't know what this character is necessarily going to end up being.
Very fascinating, though.
We have not heard one word. This character has not spoken a word. We've only heard what other people say about them.
When we first saw that soldier coming over the line on the horse, like, I was kind of, like, thinking all episode, is this when a character like Leaf returns? Is this a character that, like, obviously we are extremely far away from the last that we've seen him and our village, and I acknowledge all of that, but with the dialogue this episode, specifically from Askeladd, it's almost setting the stage, and dialogue from Askeladd and the entire monologue from Thor is about the importance of protecting his sister and his mom, and a vision of their village being destroyed. Like, I was like, I was almost preparing myself for that route home, and I think that it might come after what is occurring next. But then what's this, like? I don't know. I don't know what the narrative's going to go. Yeah.
What's the narrative after that?
One piece of dialogue that I really liked from Askeladd was, well, in other words, the world of man is getting older gradually but surely. The Saxons destroyed the Romans, and we're going to destroy the Saxons next. I'll say that a bit of personal, like, Ben belief took over. And I was frustrated with Thorfinn for throwing that coin. I was like, you need to protect it and slab it and make sure that it is,
in pristine condition for years to come.
Like, thousands of years, like 1,000 years from now, man, you have no idea how important that piece of history would be. But
Askeladd could have saved it for if he ever has kids and a wife, But his kids would have been rich.
Not
grandkids.
Obviously, I'm joking in that sense, but I think it is so interesting and so cool to have Askeladd be that character who's able to see the history on which he's standing and interact with pieces of that history as remnants of the fights that have occurred. I thought I loved it. This episode was really great.
And what we get here is an Askeladd that isn't hanging out with his men.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yes, we've gotten him maybe sitting at a table away from his men, but in the same room, still celebrating with them. And this is the first time that we're finding him in a spot of reflection. Like, this is the most spot of reflection I have ever seen of all the spots of reflection.
Yeah.
We have the sun coming up in the distance. We are on this, like, pillars of an empire that has been beaten. And we are staring at, like, rolling hills and the sun coming up.
What is it, though? It's not reflection. It's borderline introspection, but it's not introspection. It's like that analysis of history and trying to, like, remove yourself from the situation a bit to see it as such. Is a really interesting route to take with this character. I didn't expect that.
It's almost kind of cynical in a way too. Like, this is all, like, ironic. It always happens. It's a cycle. I'm just a part of that. I'm gonna go out with a bang because I have autonomy, like, over my own. Maybe he's trying to take control of his own death here. Like, that's why he's choosing to go out with this big bang. Maybe that big bang is that he gets to choose when he dies and how he dies. That could be what he's attempting to do here. Is, like, put it into his own terms. Like, he's gonna go out. If death is inevitable for everyone, then maybe he's choosing here to make a choice of how it's going to happen.
I don't think I've enjoyed time passing in any other show as much as I do in this show. It's really, like, it's really meaningful, and it, like, is full of intent.
But what it also does is create, like, questions in me of, well, once this war is resolved, where does the narrative go?
It's hard not to feel like the rest of the world or the rest of the village has moved on. And that's cynical in its own right. But when Thorfinn was talking Ari, right, or Ari, and his sister and his mom, they haven't heard anything in years. And that idea of him returning and trying to find a place,
trying to assimilate back into,
is one that is not easy to think about. Because when you're waking up at night screaming and laying in front of somebody's dead body, those are things that you can't just return and act like everything's normal.
And he's imagining himself as that small child, and he's imagining his family as the way they were before he set out on this journey.
There's processing and understanding of what happened that needs to take place in order to fully have hope and truly assimilating back. And I don't know what that looks like for a character in this time period in the world that they're in. Obviously, Thor's had a way about it, but
it's almost like time stood still for him once he got his, like, goal of revenge. Like, he doesn't even acknowledge in himself, like, wow, I've grown, I've changed. Like, he's still imagining himself as he was in the point that time stopped for him.
I know. I think that's a great way of saying things, because I think that if and when Askeladd dies, there's going to be a shot, whether it's in a pool of water or a mirror, that he looks at himself and sees what has transpired and taken effect.
I do wonder what Askeladd's death, not by his own hands, coming very soon, what effect that could have on him. If we hadn't had that dialogue in the dream about revenge, I'd probably be a little bit more worried about Thorfinn's handling of Askeladd dying, but I'm still majorly worried about how that reaction would go and emotionally how he would feel if a panic would ensue, because this was your goal that you put all of your energy into, and now your energy was so focused on that. Where is it going inside your body? Where are you focusing your energy now? Who even are you? Because you've lived all these years with this one goal in mind, that, like, do you even know who you are? Especially
with the conversation he had with Askeladd this episode and saying, like, you're not my friend, don't talk to me like that, you know what you are to me. Like, if it comes to Askeladd's death and him dying, will there be a reflection on that time together because it's not black, like it's nowhere close to black and white. There are so many different shades of gray, and in one way or another, Askeladd's presence in Thorfinn's life cannot be ignored, because for good, for bad, for however you want to take it, a big piece of Thorfinn's life has been spent around this character and affected by this character.
Yep.
Good show.
Good show.
Good show. Good show. Good show.